Good evening. Thank you. Thank you for coming back. We are going to be in the book of Exodus. Now, as you read through the book of Exodus, of course, you remember the story very well. It begins with 400 years of captivity, and the Israelites have multiplied in the land of Egypt, and now it's time to get out according to the plan of God. And they get out and into the freedom and into the land that God promises years and years ago. In the book of Exodus, the main character, I suppose, if we could put a thumbprint on it, would be, other than God, would be Moses, right? Central figure in the book of Exodus. And if we could put a central location in the book of Exodus, it would be Mount Sinai. Or later on, as Moses is writing the book of Deuteronomy, recalling so many things that have happened through their wandering, he refers to it more often as Mount Horeb, Mount Sinai, Mount Horeb, or three times in the book of Exodus, it is called the Mountain of God. It was kind of interesting to have a location described as the mountain of God. It's piqued my interest, and I love geography. We don't know where Mount Sinai is. Of course, we kind of got a general idea. But for one thing to be called God's, it has to pique our interest a little bit, doesn't it? So we're going to look at the three times in the book of Exodus that Mount Sinai is referred to as the mountain of God and what we can draw from it. And we'll put a pretty bow on it. We'll put a bow on it at the end as we wrap up. But the first one is in Exodus chapter 3. All in Exodus, the mountain of God. The first one, Exodus chapter 3. Now you remember in the situation that we're talking about here in Exodus chapter 3, Moses has been raised as the son of Pharaoh for 40 years. And now he has spent 40 years, another 40 years, as a shepherd for his father in law. So we arrive at Exodus chapter 3, and we have this 80-year-old man at the mountain of God. Let's read it together. And we're going to focus on the idea of the assurance that we get here. Exodus chapter 3, beginning in verse 1. Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. What an incredible sight. So this is it. This is our introduction, the mountain of God. The bush is there. It's burning. It's not really burning. Something's going on. And of course, then the bush starts speaking. Take off your shoes. You're standing on holy ground. Then, of course, the rest of the story, go get my people, bring them out of Egypt. And this list of excuses that Moses gives and God's refutation of those every time. We look at the first of those. It might be considered the first of those excuses in verse 10, 11, 12. And it's there, at least in my opinion, that we see the importance of this situation, other than this is the presence of God. But read verse 11 and verse 12 with me. We would truly see the assurance that Moses gets from God. Moses said to God, "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children of Israel out of Egypt?" He said, God, I will be with you. And this shall be the sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. That's an incredible amount of assurance that God gives Moses. Where's God been, right? I mean, this is what the Israelites have been asking up to this point. Where is God? I mean, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and here we are, 400 years later, and where is God? Where has God been all this time? Then Moses says, who am I? He says, you're going to do it, and this is going to be the sign. You're going to come back here and worship on this mountain. Now, of course, that's fulfilled in chapter 19 when they come back to this place where it all started. But look at the assurance that God gives. Hone in on verse 12. The assurance that God gives Moses at this point. It's an assurance based on the company. You see that? He said, but I will be with you. Do you need anything else? But I will be with you. Underline that. That statement, in and of itself, ought to give anybody the fullest confidence. I will be with you. Here he is. Okay, remove yourself from the statement. Here he is. He's talking to this bush out in the wilderness. Nobody else is around, and it's just him and a bunch of sheep. And this thing in the bush saying, I will be with you. Okay. You know, okay. Yeah, we can do it. By the way, how is this not burning up? Isn't it interesting? That's the same thing that Jesus tells his disciples before he leaves. In Matthew 28, you remember that? The King James, we grew up memorizing, and lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age. I will be with you. The company that is there. You keep reading. The assurance that Moses, it continues. The commission. Not only will I be with you, here's an incredible amount of assurance that God gives Moses. I have sent you, right? This is a job that I have sent you for. I have specifically prepared you for this moment. You are the chosen one. Can you? I always loved and I always hated being, I don't, gym class or whatever, when they were picking teams. Am I the only one? It's like they pick teams, everybody lines up, and you got your head down, kicking the dirt, and you're like, oh man. But when you were selected, it gave you an amount of pride, right? It's like, yes, somebody wants me. Nobody else is around. It's just God and Moses and some sheep. But God says, I have sent you. You are it. You are the one that I have selected, I have prepared, and I have chosen you. Boy, there ought to be some confidence coming from that statement, right? I have chosen you. I have sent you. It's pretty neat to be selected for God's team. And you continue. You look at the end here. Not only is it the company, and not only is it the commission, but you look at the end, there's this definite amount of certainty that and confidence that God instills with this phrase, when you have brought the people out of Egypt. It's not if. Hey, if you do a good job, you know, we'll meet back here and I'll give you an evaluation. It's when you bring them out of Egypt. It's going to happen. You're going to do it, and I'm going to be with you. If it's me, I just see my chest just swelling, right? I can do this. This is a pivotal moment, and it's interesting that it happens here at the mountain of God. I have sent you. I have selected you. You will do it, and I promise you're going to be right back here with 1 million, 2 million Israelites behind you. Isn't that incredible? The next time the reference in the book of Exodus, the next time the reference is made to the mountain of God is found in chapter 18 and in verse 5. And in this particular occasion, we see the assistance that Moses gets. Every single one of these, by the way, are a pivotal moment in Moses' life. At least I believe they are. And this one isn't any less pivotal. In fact, this may be one of the most crucial moments in Moses' life as a leader in Israel. Because in Exodus chapter 18, let's read verse 5. You'll see what happens. Verse 5. Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, came with his sons and his wife to meet Moses in the wilderness, where he was encamped at the mountain of God. This is it. Moses has been without his wife. He's been without his two sons so far, and now they have come to meet Moses. And he's got company with him, right? He brought some people with him this time. But this moment, in my opinion, is so pivotal because this is when Jethro, the rest of the chapter, this is just a brief synopsis. The rest of the chapter focuses on what Jethro says to Moses because Moses was here in front of again, 1.5 million, 2 million people leaving Egypt. And Moses was wearing himself out because he was standing in front of them and hearing every single thing that they had a problem with. He hit me. What should I do? Take care of it. Every single little petty thing. So Jethro gives him some advice. The assistance that Jethro gives Moses is quintessential to Moses' longevity in his ministry. Jethro said, "What are you doing? Why do you sit alone and all the people," this is verse 14, "sit alone and all the people stand around you from morning until evening?" Can you see a scene like that? From morning till evening. Then in verse 15, Moses said to his father-in-law, "Because the people come to me to inquire of God." People come to me to inquire of God. Moses saw the importance of giving good direction. This is what it's all about. Good direction is needed. And of course, Moses wasn't answering questions. He was pointing people to God, right? I mean, this is what he was doing. People come to me to inquire of God, right? Because there's that connection. Good directions. Then you see in verse 17, Jethro gives good advice. Moses' father-in-law said to him, "What you are doing is not good. You and the people with you will certainly wear yourselves out, for the thing is too heavy for you." And you, look at it in verse 18, you are not able to do it alone. If there's one thing that we as Christians today living in 2025 need to remember, you are not able to do it alone. We need each other. Jethro gave some amazing advice. You standing before these people and trying to bear this burden all by yourself, it is impossible for you to do. He's pointing people to God, but there's a better way to do it. Jethro gives good advice. And we see it, of course, with good people here in verse 21. He says, "Moreover, look for able men from all the people, men who fear God, who are trustworthy and hate a bribe, and place such men over the peoples as chiefs of thousands, hundreds of fifties, and tens. Get good people. Get good, solid, trustworthy people and let them handle this nitpicky nonsense. And of course, the story continues. When they've got a bigger case, bring it to you. This moment in Moses' life, I can only imagine extended. I think God sustained him, but extended his reach in his ministry for many years. He was trying to give good direction, but listen, he listened to good advice. We need to be able to be people who listen, and of course surround ourselves with good people. It's exactly what Moses did. Another pivotal moment that happens at the mountain of God. One more. In chapter 24, we're going to look at verse 13. We now turn our attention to the right place, because this is all about the attention that God gets. Setting the scene shortly, briefly, is the people of Israel have arrived at Mount Sinai, the place where God was going to appear there in that cloud and that incredible scene. And this is the instruction: Moses, come up. Joshua, come up. Nadab, Abihu, Aaron, everybody come up and bring 70 men with you. And everybody come up. So we understand that based on verse 9, 10, 11. And then look at verse 13. So Moses rose with his assistant, Joshua, and Moses went up into the mountain of God. So we go from 70, if you will, or so, 70 down to 2, Moses and Joshua, and then Moses goes to the presence of God. This is where he comes out and his face is shining and he puts the veil over. This is the instance. Again, another pivotal moment that happens at the mountain of God. But this one, it's not about Moses building Moses up, encouraging Moses, as chapter 3 seems to be, instilling in him some confidence. It's not about his leadership style and his ability there in chapter 18. This one is all about God. It's all about God. We see the glory of God in verse 16. Moses went up on the mountain and the cloud covered the mountain in verse 15. In verse 16, it says this: the glory of the Lord dwelt on Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And on the seventh day, he called out to Moses out of the midst of the cloud. Can you imagine in your mind's eye a storm that lasted 7 days at one location? The thunder, the lightning, and of course, it's described here as the glory of God at that. Can you imagine that? For a week, it just dwelt on the mountain. The thunder, the lightning, and it literally scared people to death. I don't want any part of it. And then you're Moses. 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 Come here. I think I would be petrified to hear my name coming out of the glory of God. But this is what it is. This brings our attention, our focus on God. In verse 17, the glory of God, 16, 17, of course, fear of God. Now, the appearance of the glory of the Lord, the appearance of the glory of the Lord was like a devouring fire on top of the mountain in the sight of the people of Israel. Moses entered the cloud and went up on the mountain. I think Moses was probably scared. Maybe he wasn't scared. At least in my mind, I would be scared. The Israelites, we know that the Israelites were pretty scared. In fact, they were probably scared for Moses, because you remember a few chapters later in chapter 32, verse 1, which is at the end of 40 days, which is how long he was up there. They say, Aaron, we don't know what happened to Moses. He's gone. Why? Why would they think that? Why would they think that God calls Moses up there? And because they see the glory of God, they're afraid of what is up there. So they arrive at this natural human conclusion that he's dead. He has to be dead. True fear of God. Of course, they made the golden calf there in 32, verse 1, as a result of, at least my opinion, of fear that Moses is dead. The glory of God. That's what the elders saw as they saw, you look back in verse 10 and verse 11, this sea as it appeared, the clearness, his fiery feet, incredible scene, the fear of God and the glory of God and this devouring fire as it surrounded. And then, of course, in verse 18, the sustenance of God, because here is Moses going up into the mountain of God and being Moses, Moses. He comes and he's there for 40 days, verse 18 says. 40 days and 40 nights. What do you eat to keep you alive for 40 days and 40 nights? I don't know. Some good granola bars? Or maybe you don't need food when you're in the presence of God. Maybe that's the furthest thing from your mind, is that when you are in the presence of God, that sustains you enough where you don't need anything physical. I don't know. But I do know that the body can't live much longer. And when Moses comes down, his face is glowing, and the people are afraid of him. It's because God has sustained him through this whole thing. But it all comes back to God. Here he is on the mountain of God, seeing the glory of God, this incredible fear that God instills in him and in those who he is leading. Let's put that bow on this. Let's put a pretty bow on these 3 points. We've got the assurance of God, the confidence that he gives us. Here in this particular text, we see how God, it's all about him. Our attention is fixed on him. Let's go to Hebrews chapter 12. In Hebrews 12, it comes right after Hebrews chapter 11. Hebrews chapter 11, incredible men and women of faith. Therefore, chapter 12, verse 1 begins. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. So you imagine yourself in this arena and the crowd who is around you. The witnesses, not necessarily those spectators, but these are witnesses in the fact that they are testifying, right? These are people who are standing beside you on the witness stand. You can do this. Therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, I would say this would be assistants, don't you? Those people who have been there and done that. Since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus. Here's the attention: looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who, look at all this. This is the assurance that he gives us. The founder, Jesus, the perfecter of our faith, Jesus, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Listen to me. This is the assurance. Jesus went through it. He went through all that so that you wouldn't have to, and you can do it too. The confidence. Fix your eyes on Jesus. Give him your attention. Look for assistance. Those who are around you. Surround yourself with good, godly people. Seek good, godly advice. Your attention is on God, and the confidence, the assurance that he gives you will sustain you. You can do it. Jesus did it. He did it for you. The mountain of God is incredible. And I love thinking about that scene or the scenes that are there. But I promise you, it will pale in comparison to the home of God that he's preparing for us. If we fix our eyes on Jesus, if we lay aside sin, which clings closely to us, maybe that's what you need to get rid of tonight. Get rid of sin, something in your life that is weighing you down. Maybe you need to fix your eyes back on Jesus. Won't you come as we stand and as we sing?